This afternoon, we have with us two well known journalists, uh, Mayank Shekhar and Vicky Lalwani. Allow me the privilege to introduce both of them. Vicky has been a journalist in the entertainment industry since 2000. He started off as a freelancer and wrote for several publications like Afternoon, Deccan Chronicle, the Free Press Journal, the Asian Age, the Statesman, to name a few. He went on to join Midday in 2005 and then led a team of reporters in a Zoom show called Popcorn. He followed this by joining Mumbai Mirror, worked there for 7 years, and was designated as Deputy Editor Entertainment. And then joined Spotboy as editor to lead it for 6.5 years. He then joined the Times of India Group to work for E Times and then followed it up by joining Times Network to work for Zoom and Times Now Digital as consulting entertainment editor. That was Vicky Lalwani for you. Right here with me on my left is Mayank Shekhar. As a Ramnath Goenka award-winning journalist, Mayank Shekhar has been covering media for over 2 decades. He was in the founding editorial team of Mumbai Mirror, besides national cultural editor with the Hindustan Times. He's currently entertainment editor with Midday Mumbai, where you can access his popular podcast, Sit with Hit List, and The Bombay Story, awarded for best use of audio by US based International News Media Association. You can also follow his film reviews and weekly column, MS Word, on India and mass culture that was similarly the theme of his book, Name, Place, Animal, Thing. That's Mayank Shekhar for you. As we dive deep into the discussion, I'm reminded of an anecdote which involves the Greek philosopher Diogenes. Now, Diogenes, the Greek philosopher, was known for his extreme asceticism and defiance of social norms. One day, interestingly, the Macedonian king Alexander the Great bumped into Diogenes and asked him if there was something he could do for him. Now, Diogenes could actually ask for anything. The emperor is asking him what he can do for him. He could have asked for a house, he could have asked for money, gold coins, or even a horse. Instead, Diogenes said, when asked what the emperor could do for him, said, yes, you can do something. You are blocking the sun. Please move out. Now, when Alexander left, he told his confidants, if I weren't Alexander, I'd like to be Diogenes. Asked why, he said because this person knew exactly what he wanted in the now, in the present, and he went ahead and got that. Yeah. So interestingly, the age that we live in today is completely chaotic. Yeah. And today we'll have a discussion to figure out what is it that we can do now if we are to change the future for the better. Yeah. So that's the preamble. Social media, AI, and fake news are among the many challenges facing journalism today. And my two colleagues on my left will agree to that. When George Orwell wrote that political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable, and to give an appearance of solidity to pure wind, he wrote in an era which journalism offered valuable alternatives. Reporting was rooted in facts, and in which a clear distinction existed between fact and emotion. But in Orwell's time, millions of people bought a daily newspaper and listened to the radio. Citizens discussed and debated a common range of topics while having tea or coffee or maybe having lunch. They felt sufficiently well informed to make a reasoned decision. But today, the world that we live in, journalists like this face novel challenges. Artificial intelligence tools, deliberate disinformation, and conspiracy theories are some of the things that they are facing on a daily basis. Now, these threats to our democratic system are potent and real. Given that background, I ask Mayank the first question, which is Mayank, you have in many ways experienced both scenarios. One where these challenges did not exist, and now the challenges that we are really faced with. How has this affected your craft in real terms?
Well, firstly, thank you very much, Fabian, for a warm introduction and those couple of anecdotes, and also mentioning George Orwell. I'd like to respond to that first in terms of what the purpose language serves to politics to begin with. And that's the challenge we're also facing, in the sense that the point of language in a political discourse is to debase it, to make it make everything that we believe to be completely redundant, to take an individual as a sum of multiple parts and reduce them into one or two names. So someone becomes a leftist, someone becomes a right winger, someone becomes pro BJP, the other person becomes anti Congress, someone becomes, if he cares about certain issues, again, of a certain bent of mind, etc., etc. So what you do is, with the labeling of individuals, you reduce that individual not to what they're saying, but who they are. And internet is the big change, obviously, that happened during my lifetime. And within internet, social media, which was internet 2.0, as it were. And that is where polarization began. And polarization also began because we began to incentivize polarized opinion. So if you take an extremist position on anything, if you take a piece of news that is taking a stand only on one side, as it turns out, within that ecosystem, it travels fast. So there is a point then for you to take those kind of positions because it sells better. Whereas that is not the point of news. That certainly is not the point of news media. But news media is operating the same platform, the same ecosystem where everybody else is. So I think it boils down to one, incentivization of certain kinds of news, where people who will put out something are competing with news organizations that are also putting out something, and the news organization sees that, your particular tweet actually gets far more views and likes and shares than a news organization that took care of all those things that need to be there for it to be considered news in the first place. So I think the big change that took place during my lifetime is that I used to be a journalist. Now everyone's a journalist, right? Now, if everyone is a journalist, then what is it that separates me from the second person? I think what does is, if me as a journalist, I'm actually going out there into the field and getting something which is completely from the ground, right? I'll give you an example. For instance, I could, in the last elections, I covered Bengal, and I went to Sandesh Khali, this particular village, which is very hard to reach. You cross the river, you reach this town, then you reach within the town, a particular village. And now this is the elections. I have nothing to do with the BJP. I have absolutely nothing to do with Mamta's party also. So you take a neutral point of view and you report it. That, if it gets the same number of views, then someone who is just lying around and putting out something that they feel like, then the incentive for a news organization to send someone there becomes becomes less. So that has been the big challenge. And the big challenge also came from the fact that everything became internet. And while the news organizations moved to the internet as well, the advertising revenue from news organizations did not go to the news organization's internet presence. It went across the internet. So it becomes less and less, it becomes harder and harder for news organizations to spend on direct neutral reporting. It becomes easier and easier for people to spread propaganda in the first place as a result.
So thanks for that.
Sorry, was I too convoluted in my answer?
No,
I hope people got exactly what I was trying to say, because if there are questions, I'd be very happy to take them.
Yeah. So, Vicky, how has the changing scenario affected your craft?
Well, I think it has affected a lot, because when I started sometime in 2000, and it was pure journalism. As Mayank said that, what he actually meant was there are very few people today who actually go to the field and try to find out, who actually meet people and try to find out what's happening in their office or what's happening in their film. basically we being film journalists and TV journalists from the entertainment industry. So it was pure reporting then. It was absolutely first hand. We used to meet the director, we used to meet the producer, we used to meet the actor and get information from them off record. Now, you may ask whether this is news or not, but this is news. Because according to me, what is news is what they don't want to come out. News is not something that is being done today. Like on Instagram, if a couple has announced a divorce and you are just repeating that on your digital platform or in your newspaper or on your TV channel and just, reading it out, that's not news. News is something which the actor or actress or the producer doesn't want it to be out in public domain, and you are the first one to throw it out. It's not about positive story or negative story. It's a story. Whether A is doing a film or A is not doing a film, both ways. So that kind of journalism is almost over. Almost over. I don't see that around me. There is very lazy journalism, which I think is the word. And as a consequence, the craft is affected. Because at a certain point in your career, if you're senior, you're certainly leading a team in some way as a deputy or maybe as the chief editor. And if your team is now the question, maybe the next question you're asking me is that how are you going to activate them? How are you going to motivate them to do true journalism? The answer is it's very difficult. It's very difficult, howsoever pessimistic this may sound, because today all the youngsters which I see coming out from college or coming out from wherever and joining journalism, they are all giving us news which is already on Instagram, which is already on other sites. And they come and tell us this is exclusive. We of course track it down and say this is not exclusive. But that's all they have during the full day. They are not going out, they are not meeting people. So obviously the craft is going to be affected, whether it's of mine or whether it's of the product.
So Vicky, thanks for saying that. In fact, I was just going to ask you a very similar question because the audience will agree too that today, the younger generation, especially students, rely on social media for what they imagine to be news. The under 25s who read newspapers are very rare nowadays. And live audiences for radio and television news programs have just vanished. Given that scenario, Vicky, what in your opinion are ways in which the new generation can be lured back to professional journalism? Is there anything that the fraternity and the seniors could do to be able to lure them to professional journalism?
No, as I said, it's very difficult, but well, if you ask me, you can still groom people. It's not like that you can't groom people. Though you won't get that kind of talent which was there 15 years ago or 10 years ago. The only way I see it that, how you can perhaps lure them back to true journalism is that when an editor tries to, or when an owner of a publication house says, and it's mostly digital what I'm talking about right now, because basically it's all digital. You're all reading news on phones only. I mean, I wonder whether how many of you are reading newspapers. So, in the digital scenario, the owner and the editor, instructions are that I want everything. If A has it or B has it, why don't I have it? Without checking the veracity of the story, without checking the truth in the story. He has it, you must have it in the next 10 minutes. Now, if I'm going to go in that way that I need to have everything on my platform, there is going to be a lot of rubbish on the platform. Whether it's a feature, whether it's spotting, whether it's, it's irrelevant. And that is where the crux of the news gets buried gets lost. That's how it is.
So going by the topic
So
of
I
our
I'm
discussion,
just sorry to interrupt you. I need to filter here. I need to say I don't want this, I don't want that. But again, if I the it's a catch-22 situation. If I take 5 stories of the 20 which I'm offered by the team, the other publication who's my rival on the digital has 20. The problem is that I'm maybe lessening my revenue. The number of clicks, the number of views. My revenue is going to be 1/4 or maybe 1/5. Or maybe I'll disappear into oblivion because the more quantification you do on Google, unfortunately, the algorithm is that you will froth up more, you will be seen more. And so the quantity is also one aspect that everybody is, putting a gun on your head and saying, do quantity also. It's a very tough time. It's a very, very tough time.
thanks for that, Vicky. My next question is directed to Mayank. Mayank, the term or word post-truth was Oxford Dictionary's 2016 Word of the Year and is defined as relating to or denoting circumstances in which objective facts are less influential in shaping public opinion than emotion and personal interest. Now, how has this come to be and what are the most damaging effects of this phenomena, Mayank?
Well, the damaging effects are kind of known, right? The fact that you are looking out for truth and you don't find it. And it's very deeply related to how in this world practically everyone is as much a content creator as they are content consumers. Now, if you go to the Indian law, for instance, there is nothing specifically written there that offers journalists the right that is separate from other citizens when it comes to freedom of speech and expression. When the constitution was being written, they thought there should be a right to free press as a separate right. They said, no, why? Because we already have right to freedom of expression, so let's just stick with that. Which means that what I write, what any journalist writes, they could be putting themselves on the line for something larger than themselves, but they don't get any extra privileges for it, right? Which means that if the rights of all of us are the same, I can't put out anything which has been verified multiple times. If I get it wrong, I'm screwed. That should be true for each and every person doing it. Because if the rights are the same, then the duties also need to be the same. And that is where post-truth or fake news comes. Because when I am taken to the cleaners for getting one thing wrong, why is it that many people who pick up any random rubbish and start sharing it, whether on their WhatsApp groups, whether on their own social media platforms, or even sharing it between themselves? Why is that okay? So I think there needs to be much stricter surveillance of regular people because everyone's a journalist now. In the same way, there is such strong editorial surveillance, editorial control, editorial verification before we put out anything in what is called the quote-unquote mainstream or legacy media. The rules have to be the same because everyone is doing exactly the same thing. You could have a handle that has a million and a half, viewers, followers. It's the same thing as a publication. So why is it that it's okay that you can put out whatever the hell you feel like? You've never verified any piece of information. You're reaching more people than a lot of publications do. Now, coming back to the thing about newspapers and whether people are reading and etc. I don't think that is what concerns journalists at all. Newspaper is a product that comes from a printing press. No journalist I know actually works in a printing press. Whether the same piece of content is consumed or on a online platform, it still remains an online platform. It is just as important by itself. So I'm not too concerned about. What I am concerned about, and I think that's the phase, and you said you were going through a tough time, Vicky. I think it's a phase. Because over time, people will realize that all the rubbish that they keep getting, that they keep believing, and that they keep getting wrong each time, they will need to go back and check where is it that they can get more verified information from. So publications that have that editorial, I'm not even saying love, but just pure fidelity, faithfulness to truth, are the ones that even the younger generation will start gravitating towards at some point or the other. I think this is a new explosion. This will run its own course, and eventually, I think what is genuine, what is authentic, what is verified, where a lot more effort is gone, where someone's actually gone and met someone actually knows better than the other person, will eventually triumph, hopefully.
Vicky, it is noticeable, and we've spoken about it briefly as well, that media outlets world over, including our country, have increasingly embraced opinion based content while objective reporting has lost its former significance. What would you attribute this trend to? And are there any examples that support your thought?
This opinion-based contents again starts from, social media, because there is no news that is appearing from the journalist. It's all coming from the social media. He or she is just repeating what the couple has said. Okay, we are divorcing, we are parting amicably, etc. There's no follow-up. There's nothing being done. So now, what does the journalist do? I'm not talking about the digital platform or the newspapers here. Right now, I think the opinion-based, when you say, is more on the screen. It's more on YouTube. It's more on TV. They don't have anything. So how do they fill up the time? That's why you see all these debates and all these discussions happening.
So, Mayank, the false content online has only multiplied over the years. I mean, we've seen that happen in the recent past. There is talk about disinformation, which is purposefully, created content to mislead, and there is misinformation, which is content that mistakenly goes out. Yeah. Now, as a consumer of content, how does one decipher between content that's misinformation, that is disinformation, that is fake, that is true? I mean, it's so confusing for even the consumer,
Yeah.
So what in your mind
No,
is
I think,
something that...
see, the point of, to go back on the issue of opinion-based journalism, the reason why it exists is because it gets the same kind of views, gets the same kind of, readership many a times, that something where a lot more effort has gone into it will. So if you see the beginning of television journalism, for instance, which required people to go to field, to go to spots, to report from there, to put a mic in front of a person where it's happened, and so it costs X. It costs X divided by 20 for 5 people to sit and start yapping with each other. But if 5 people sitting and yapping with each other gets you the same number of viewers as 20x that is spent in terms of not just money, but also in terms of time to actually get primary source based news, then eventually they realize, why spend on that? So I think somewhere down the line, it rests on the ownership of media holdings, where their concern has to be way beyond only the advertising revenue, only the viewership figures, because they're also serving a purpose larger than that. It's not Alu Bengan ka business, which would be the case where all you want to do is keep putting stuff on your website and your ranking keeps going up on Google. It doesn't matter what you're shitting on that website, but your ranking keeps going up. That cannot be the reason why you got into this field, right? So that's from the content creator's side. And they have a responsibility. There is a reason why you got into it. What did you get in for? Because if it's just money, then there's a lot of money to be made from lots of other spheres, lots of other fields. It's the only field where honesty has to be respected most. If 2 builders are having some deal and one, hoodwinks the other and makes some money, I don't think you're going to be considered, a terrible human being for it. But if a journalist does the same thing, you consider a terrible human being, because there's one thing you're being paid for, which is honesty. So there's one field where you cannot, it is not like other fields in that sense, right? So that is a responsibility from the media holding side, from the content creators side. Why are you in it, right? Then from the consumer side, I'm saying, if all you're giving in terms of your time and your attention is any rubbish, then you deserve what you get. If you're to sit and watch some random Arnab debate, making up stuff in his own head and actually, making that a spectacle as if it was Big Boss house, then that is what you deserve for news. Shut that channel down. Watch something else. So I think somewhere it comes from both, but the incentivization of crap comes from the consumer. And if you're going to constantly consume crap, then you're going to constantly get crap because you constantly deserve crap. I think with fake news, the larger issue that you're referring to, Fabian, is actually hitting the older generation far more because they value the written word. And right now, whatever they see, wherever they see, they think it's written word. But it's written by who? And that filtration, whether it's in WhatsApp groups of housing societies, whether it's in WhatsApp groups of friends, families more so, right? I think they need to be called out, and increasingly so. Listen, this is not true, and I find people of my generation, which is in the cusp really. We're from a generation that saw a world without the internet, but there was some element of internet in it, and then of course it blew up. As against the generation above mine that has adopted this social media as if it was the truth, but it's actually post-truth, it's actually fake. That generation needs to be taught far more. I think the younger ones over time will figure that this is crap. I've consumed it long enough to know, and this is not where I'm going to get my rubbish from. I will actually go to more credible sites. So the ones who stay this course, and I give it another 10 years max, the ones who stay this course will actually reap the benefits of having been honest when there was incentive to be dishonest.
Well said, Mayank. Yeah.
I think to add to
Yes.
Mayank, what he beautifully put out as the reason for the opinion pieces becoming rampant. There's one other reason which I want to add here, that why they have become rampant. He said that you either shut down the channel or you are being given what you want.
I mean, you don't shut down the channel. You switch the channel.
Okay.
I'm not arguing for any sort of censorship at all. Yeah.
Okay. So there is one thing which is the reason also for these opinion-based discussions and all, which are happening from 7 to 10 on every TV channel almost, is that there's biased journalism. There is an agenda. There's an agenda almost in every discussion that you see. I wonder how many discussions do you and I see where you actually feel that the grain is neutral,
Or that you learned anything.
or that you learned anything. Yeah. Because it's coming with a complete agenda. You know who is the engine driver of this discussion, whether it's A or whether it's B. So what is it? And that is also, as he spoke about polarization earlier to start the discussion, that is also dividing the society. You like the program B and I like the program A. We both may like B, but these two on this side may like A. So that's how the country is also getting divided and divided. So opinion-based pieces are, corroding the moral fabric of society, of thinking, of working, of what you read. Absolutely.
So my last piece in the discussion is based on the fact of popularity. In fact, not so long ago, in a case against television host of a well-known news broadcaster in the US, I don't want to name the broadcaster, the executives at the news channel admitted, and that too under oath, that their most popular programs were not necessarily trustworthy sources of news. Now that's admitted under oath. Now, between the both of you, Vicky and Mayank, when faced with the choice between popularity and authenticity, what are the real challenges you face as a journalist in terms of the pressures of day-to-day reportage? And what does your decision eventually is based on? I mean, do you choose popularity or you choose authenticity? How do you, navigate that on a day-to-day basis?
Again, it's difficult. Because if a news is broken out, as I said, and it's already gone viral before you have winked, because that is the pace of internet, you don't know what to do. You try to tell your team to, verify it, but by the time they verify it, and I'm talking about digital again, those 10 posts have become 100 on the internet. So you need to carry the first news. Suppose, for example, let's say Sonakshi is getting married on July 23. Somebody has reported. You have to carry it. It's that. And by the time, suppose she is not getting married, you have to come out with that also. If you don't, unfortunately, suppose she's not getting married, is the story here. Suppose you don't, somebody else will. The reader at the end of the day is hell confused that who is lying and who is not, or who is authentic and who is not. And there are some sites who always have question marks also. And they also write in the heading, here's what we know. So, that heading, here's what we know, makes you click more because you think they really know something. But inside there's nothing. This is just a repeat of the first story from where they copied. So that at the end of the day, there is so much of different kinds of news that even though you may be a very senior reporter, including myself here, who's mainly on news, I would say, and less on interviews and reviews. I think I have a very great film critic sitting beside me who writes so well that I envy him, especially the way he writes. But on news, I myself today in 2024 am hell confused that what's the truth. Now you may ask that why don't you reach out to the celebrity? And you are senior, you have sources, etc., etc. But it's not that easy. When I was working, in fact in Midday, and Mayank was also there, those were the days when it was 2005, 2006. It was easier to reach them. It was easier to reach them and somehow get 80% of the truth from them. Today, you can't reach them. They have layers and layers and layers. PR, manager. It's become so layered that you can't reach them. And if you can't reach them, what do? I'm in a no man's land.
Well, I mean, this is an issue that will be hard to resolve because it also comes from the fact of everyone has their own social media handle. They want to show a certain side of them. They have a direct reach. This we face as much in politics as we face in show business. These are all related fields. I mean, the example may be Sonakshi Sinha, but the example can also be a politician. Nothing changes, right? I think it could also be a business leader. Nothing changes. I mean, that same pattern plays out regardless of which field you report in. But I think, by and large, we are not here to dictate what people will be interested in. So popularity is not my concern. If you're interested in Salman Khan, for all I care, that is what we have to deliver. There's no doubt about that. What does not change as a result of that popularity or people's interest in a field is the journalism side of it, which still has to follow the same rules, which is to ask the right questions, which is also to be faithful to truth. Now, again, it doesn't matter if that area of interest is sports, the area of interest is business, the area of interest is politics, the area of interest is show business. So that cannot change. If that is what the world wants, our job is to at least be correct from our front in delivering that. Otherwise, why are people interested in this? There are so many other problems in the world. That would be changing the world, and I think we'll be in the wrong profession if we thought we could change the world from being in any field, let alone journalism.
No, because I thought when you said 10 years mein ho jayega, earlier it will be resolved. I thought even this will be resolved.
Not this aspect. I think this aspect is going to be permanent. The fact of social media being there is permanent. I think the aspect that I was talking about is from the consumer's end, where over a period of time, they will realize that each and every time they're getting hoodwinked, each and every time they're being taken on a wrong path, each and every time what they think does not turn out to be the truth. And here I don't mean opinion, I mean facts. Now, if the wrong facts are coming from the same source where the wrong opinions are coming from, they will start looking for more verified sources looking for more established, credible sources of news. And I think it's a matter of time when that happens.
You asked me how to lure back the younger generation back to newspapers. Me having done digital for the longest time in recent times, and he being from print, I would still say that, please start buying the newspaper, which you have stopped buying after COVID. That is the first thing you have to do if you want the younger generation around you, at your house or in your neighborhood or wherever, to start believing in newspapers more rather than on social media or here's what we know and all those question marks. So unless that happens, I mean, we had also stopped buying newspapers, especially
I
in
think
COVID.
It's a very
And
strong
we
case.
restarted
Yeah.
it.
It's a very, very strong case. And I don't know if there are enough young people here, but I'm saying the beauty of a newspaper, and I don't mean newspaper in terms of paper. A newspaper can also be on your phone, and you just click pages. The beauty of a newspaper, which is lost on the younger generation, is serendipity, discovery of something new. The problem with algorithm-based news is only stuff that you want to know about is what you keep getting. Whereas in the 14th page of a newspaper, there's this small corner, you discovered something new. You may want to find out more about it. It expands your horizon because everything on that day has been put together, and it's up to you where your eyes go. But your eyes can go to things that the algorithm will not send you towards. And that is where I think newspapers should hopefully get a comeback, and it can be in the digital form. In fact, right now it is in the digital form. We don't want to cut more trees, but we certainly want to flip through a newspaper.
So thank you, Vicky and Mayank, for that interesting conversation. We have one, we can take one question if there is from the audience. I mean, this is an opportunity to reach out to your favorite film critics and newsmakers. So anyone has a question? Yeah. Can we give the gentleman a...
Hi, I have a very simple question.
If you can introduce yourself as well.
My name is Manoj Matlani, and I'm also an ex-midday on the marketing side of it. My question arises from the biasness that comes from the journalism side of it. How to control that? Because there are biased journalists who gives you fake news or whatever they want to put out to the reader. How to control that?
Well, I doubt that you can take a bias out of an individual. It's natural, it's going to exist. The problem is when that bias becomes a prejudice. You can be, even as readers, you can be biased towards certain kinds of news, right? But prejudice is when you're injecting facts when they don't exist. And that is very easy to wean out because it's not true. And it can be verified that it's not true. The fact that you are drawn towards a particular kind of news is as true for the person who creates it as it is true for the person who consumes it.
Yeah, so I think we've just about reached our time. So before we close, on a closing note, allow me to say that in an age where information is so unreliable, the ability to question ourselves is the closest thing we have to knowledge. And knowledge, unlike opinion, is not something everyone has. So thank you, Vicky and Mayank, for that wonderful conversation. And thank you, the audience, for being present and listening in. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Fabian, and thank you, esteemed panelists. I would like to call upon Veeramani to give a token of appreciation to our panelists.